The forgotten unit that was better than Delta Force. We've all heard of the famous Delta Force, the U.S. military's elite counterinsurgency unit. Delta Force has carried out several high-profile missions over the years, and they are undoubtedly the best of the best. However, they were not the first in the game. This title goes to another unit that has now been forgotten, known as Blue Light. This was the first counterterrorism unit created by the United States military. Back in the day, they carried out several high-profile missions that even rivaled that of other Special Forces units. In fact, they were so good that when Delta Force was finally created, both units had a huge rivalry that would go down in U.S. military history. But what happened to Blue Light? What became of all the members of the unit? And why does no one remember them? Today, we will dive into the insane story of the forgotten unit that was better than Delta Force itself. In the early 1970s, the threat of terrorism and insurgencies was on the rise globally. Countless terrorist groups embraced asymmetric warfare tactics. The 1972 Munich Olympics massacre was a pivotal event that showcased the threat of well-trained extremist groups. It became clear to everyone that traditional military forces were not equipped to handle these new complex counterterrorism missions. While the United States had a pretty powerful military at the time, it lacked a specialized force that could swiftly deploy worldwide to react to terrorist incidents and hostage crises. Most U.S. Special Operations units remain focused on the conventional military mindset of large-scale warfare. But with the rising terrorist threats, something had to be done. Colonel Charlie Beckwith, a seasoned Green Beret officer, identified this capability gap after serving on an exchange program with the British Special Air Service, SAS, in the early 1970s. The SAS pioneered the development of revolutionary counter-terrorism tactics in the aftermath of World War II. Their approach relied on speed, surprise, and small squads of elite operators specially trained in close quarters battle, covert insurgent, sniping, communications, negotiations, and much more. Beckwith observed their operations firsthand and was inspired to create an equivalent force in America. Upon returning to the U.S. in 1974, Beckwith wrote a concept paper outlining his vision for a U.S. military counterterrorism unit modeled after SAS. The proposed unit would consist of approximately 100 men divided into smaller operational units. However, not just anyone can join this new unit. All members had to be handpicked. Beckwith advocated for recruiting experienced Special Forces soldiers who already had combat experience and unconventional warfare expertise. But that was not all. He also insisted that the unit must have its own funding, recruitment process, and command structure outside of traditional Special Forces. The unit would specialize in hostage rescue, counterinsurgency, counterproliferation, and direct action missions. Beckwith recognized that bureaucracy stifled innovation, and his proposed unit needed operational independence and a direct line to the Pentagon to be successful. Though the idea was great, creating such a unit was not going to be easy. Beckwith spent a year lobbying the Department of Defense to secure support for his revolutionary concept. Many within the Army's upper echelons were skeptical, seeing Beckwith as an outsider, challenging the status quo. But a confluence of world events underscored the need. The 1976 hijacking of an Air France airliner to Entebbe convinced U.S. officials it was time to act. In 1977, Beckwith was given the green light by General Steiner to establish a counter-terrorism unit called 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, better known as Delta Force. Beckwith handpicked the most elite soldiers from across branches of the military to join Delta's operator training course at Fort Bragg. The standards were exceptionally high, as Beckwith wanted only the most competent and qualified operators. The initial selection course saw washout rates of over 70%, as applicants were pushed to their mental and physical limits through grueling tests. The training was focused on marksmanship, close quarters battle, covert insurgent, and mental flexibility. Beckwith even recruited SAS veterans to help refine Delta's tactics and training programs. It would take 2 to 3 years to build Delta into an operational counterterrorism force. During this time, some top brass officials within the Special Forces Old Guard saw Delta as a threat to their control over unconventional warfare. While Colonel Beckwith began the long process of establishing Delta Force, some within the traditional Special Forces community saw an opportunity to undermine his efforts. They moved to create their own interim counterterrorism unit that could block Delta's rise to the top. In 1977, senior Special Forces commanders created a special unit called Blue Light, drawing operators from the 2nd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group. It would specialize in counterterrorism while Delta got up and running. The name Blue Light may have been a reference to the term used by radar operators when detecting a fast-moving contact. On the surface, Blue Light aimed to temporarily fill the counterterrorism capabilities gap identified by Beckwith, but in reality, many top officials hoped to make Blue Light a permanent fixture that would prevent Delta Force from ever gaining traction. Having their own counterterrorism unit would allow Special Forces to retain control over missions without ceding any power to Delta. The Pentagon provided Blue Light with ample funding and resources despite its small size of just over 100 operators. Command of the elite unit fell to Colonel Bob Montell, a seasoned Green Beret who served in Vietnam. Montell was highly respected both for his tactical prowess and his doctorate in psychology. Montell recruited a number of experienced Special Forces veterans to join Blue Light's initial squad. Among them were operatives like Joseph Kincaid, a decorated Green Beret from the Vietnam era. He later led the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School and played a pivotal role in developing the curriculum that all Special Forces follow today. These operatives formed the heart of leadership for Blue Light. They oversaw the recruitment and training of the unit's enlisted members, drawing from both veterans and some new recruits. Standards were high, but not quite on par with Delta's current criteria. Blue Light focused its initial training on traditional counterinsurgency tactics developed during the Vietnam War. This included ambush drills, tracking and surveillance, jungle combat, village stability operations, and much more. However, Blue Light also incorporated CQB training for hostage rescue and aircraft assaults, while Delta Force trained for short-notice global counterterrorism missions. Blue Light prepared for more sustained counterinsurgency deployments in hotspots like Latin America. With the creation of Delta Force, Blue Light now had major competition. The rivalry between the two units was intense, as both aimed for control over America's counterterrorism mission. Blue Light aimed to cement itself as the go-to counterterrorism force before Delta could get off the ground. There was an overlap in the capabilities of the two units, but their methods differed. Blue Light favored traditional Special Forces practices, while Delta embraced unconventional methods learned from the SAS. This rivalry was more than just a turf war. It represented an ideological battle over the future of counterterrorism strategy. By 1978, Delta Force had graduated its first class of operators from their difficult selection course. Led by Colonel Charlie Beckwith, the unit had developed revolutionary counter-terrorism tactics and training methods modeled on Beckwith's experience with the British SAS. Delta Force's early operators were handpicked from the most elite soldiers across the U.S. military, yet over 70% of recruits quit before completing the course. The training focused on counter-terrorism scenarios requiring speed, precision, and ingenuity. Delta operators became experts in covert insurgent, close quarters combat, sniping, communications, and fieldcraft. With its direct line to the Pentagon, Delta secured enough funding and resources to acquire cutting-edge weapons and technology for missions. They pioneered the use of advanced night vision, suppressors, breaching charges, and custom aircraft to enhance their capabilities. Delta's rigor, talent pool, and autonomy allowed it to revolutionize special operations. It rose to become America's premier counterterrorism force within a few years after its creation. But Delta still faced competition from the rival Blue Light unit created by Special Forces traditionalists. But Blue Light aimed to perform counterterrorism duties using conventional Special Forces approaches developed in Vietnam. However, most Special Forces group commanders realized Delta's innovations could not be ignored. In 1978, the Army leadership quietly disbanded Blue Light, reassigning its members or having them retire. Delta had effectively won the political battle over control of counterterrorism operations. This represented the ascendance of Delta's advanced capabilities over Blue Light's data doctrine. However, Colonel Beckwith extended an olive branch to qualified former Blue Light members, inviting them to attempt Delta's stringent selection course. Those able to pass were integrated as Delta operators. These Blue Light veterans helped showcase some of the best aspects of both units. Their real-world experience proved invaluable for planning missions like the disastrous Operation Eagle Claw hostage rescue attempt in Iran in 1980. Throughout the 1980s, Delta Force would pioneer and refine countless advanced counterterrorism tactics. They developed hyper-realistic quarters combat training facilities that simulated aircraft, ships, and other assault scenarios. Delta operators became experts in dynamic entry using specialized breaching methods to gain rapid access to defense structures. Sniper teams provided precision, long-range firepower, and overwatch during missions. The unit perfected covert insertion into heavily guarded enemy areas via helicopters, boats, parachutes, and other means. Delta could deploy task force-size operatives anywhere in the world within hours, using customized aircraft. They perfected the ability to operate independently in small teams across the spectrum of warfare. Over the years, Delta adopted cutting-edge technologies like night vision, suppressed weapons, covert communications gear, and more. Custom vehicles, weapons, and equipment not available to other forces enhanced Delta's capabilities. Delta Force set the standard for special operations across the U.S. military. Their counterterrorism methods were studied by Naval Special Warfare Units and Air Force Special Tactics Squadrons. Delta's influence reshaped U.S. Special Operations doctrine across all branches of the service. The origins of Delta Force were controversial. However, the vision of leaders like Beckwith propelled the unit to revolutionize counterterrorism capabilities for America. Delta's rise was fueled by competition from the short-lived Blue Light unit. The inter-unit rivalry drove innovation and excellence from the challenge to be the best counter-terrorism force. Out of this development emerged specially trained operators and units to confront the emerging threat of global terrorism. Delta Force pioneered advanced tactics that remain central to U.S. Special Operation Forces to this day. Delta's influence also reshapes Special Operations Forces across all branches of the military. Naval Special Warfare Units and Air Force Special Tactics teams studied and adopted Delta's counterterrorism methods. The stakes also helped the unit grow in several areas. For instance, the tragedy of the Iran hostage rescue mission highlighted deficiencies that Delta moved to address through hyper-realistic training facilities and procedures. Later evolutions ensured the unit could operate anywhere globally within hours with sophisticated intelligence support. Delta Force became America's premier counterterrorism force, directly shaping options available to national leadership. The unit successfully completed high-risk missions like the capture of Panama's Manuel Noriega and the hunting of Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar. While Delta Force became the elite unit it is today, thanks to all the hard work and dedication put in by its members, the rivalry it had with Blue Light during its formative years was essential in making the unit not just the best in America, but in the whole world. Plus, the members from Blue Light who joined Delta also passed down some important traits that helped Blue Light succeed. What is your opinion on the Blue Light unit? Let us know in the comments.